the blink of an eye, 2020 is roughly halfway complete. With a slew of big game releases thus far, the gaming industry is moving ahead with full steam despite real-life complications. As we move toward the next generation of consoles, now might be a good time to look back on the best games of the first half of 2020. While side-scrolling beat-em-ups have not had their time in the sun for quite some time, Streets of Rage 4 once again brings the genre back to the spotlight with a contemporary feel. Underneath its modern, comic-esque style, Streets of Rage 4 brings the classic gameplay into the present along with its chaotic fun and intuitive controls. In our review, we found that the story mode is a perfect length with a smooth difficulty curve. Roughly a year after the remake of fan-favorite Resident Evil 2 comes the Resident Evil 3 remake. With Jill Valentine, Carlos Oliveira and his luscious hair, and series regular and bioweapon Nemesis, the game is easily recognizable. While the game was generally less well received than the remake of Resident Evil 2, the game is still robust in its own right. With successful releases in Resident Evil 7 and the two aforementioned remakes, the franchise is trending upwards towards the Resident Evil Village release. In our Resident Evil 3 review, we found that while the game still stubbornly hangs on to a few of the original mechanics' shortcomings, the vast majority of the package is a breathtaking recreation of material we fell in love with 2 decades ago. Having released about 10 years ago, the success of Xenoblade Chronicles has led to the development of a spin-off, a sequel, and now a remastered definitive edition of the game that started it all. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition does what most remasters do, updating visuals, controls, music, and adding quality of life improvements to what was already a great game. Furthermore, a new epilogue set a year after the game's events was also added. For those who never experienced Xenoblade Chronicles, the Definitive Edition is the perfect way to experience one of the best JRPGs in recent memory. In our review, we concluded that Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition hits the nail on the head in almost every way and adds up to a beautiful adventure that thoroughly deserves your time. That's right, one of the best games of the year so far is a game that lets you make games. Dreams is the latest title from Media Molecule of Little Big Planet fame, and is once again allowing players to be creative as they like, or to simply enjoy playing through other user creations. Some of the content we've seen created within Dreams has been absurdly brilliant, whether they are conceptual in nature or otherwise. While this game sits at number 7 on the list, the possibilities appear to be endless at this time. In our review, we found that Dreams is also a limitless playground for those that just want to sit back and enjoy the ride. Hell has come to Earth as Doom Eternal continues the demon slaying from 2016's Doom. Once again, taking the role of the Doom Slayer, players can take the battle into their own hands with a variety of weapons and killing methods. If you enjoyed Doom 2016, Doom Eternal is more of the same, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like the previous iteration, Doom Eternal is continuing the fight to show that the single-player FPS genre can continue to thrive. In our review, we recommended that if you've got any fondness for shooters, the 90s, or fun generally, consider Doom Eternal absolutely essential. The follow-up to 2015's hit title Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori and the Will of the Wisp continues the charming series. Immediately, players will notice that the game's aesthetic style has shifted from 2D artwork to 3D models and multi-layered backgrounds. Continuing the story as a sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisp introduces melee combat while improving existing elements such as exploration, environments, and its soundtrack. Despite being a smaller title, Ori and the Will of the Wisp makes a big splash. In our review, we concluded that whether you are coming to this as a seasoned gamer who wants a challenge, or someone who just loves the game's beauty, it simply is a joy to play and will captivate you for hours. One of the most anticipated games of the year, and perhaps the last decade, the Final Fantasy VII Remake has finally released, or at least the first part of it. With its striking visuals, strong character development, and surprising adaptation of the original combat system, The Final Fantasy VII Remake is unsurprisingly addictive. While story elements face criticism from some, the game does well in appealing to those who have played the original and those who have not. In our review, we found that here then is the Final Fantasy VII you remember, the shining vision of your youth, untouched by the decays of time. Very rarely does a game release with perfect timing that suits that timing perfectly. Animal Crossing New Horizons released when the world needed it most, providing gamers of all demographics a relatively relaxing island getaway. It is perhaps of this timing that the game has also made its mark culturally, still being talked about and played relentlessly months after release. Regardless of timing, Animal Crossing New Horizons is simply a good game with content continually releasing. In our review, we suggest that if you've ever had even a whiff of interest in this franchise, Animal Crossing New Horizons will be an absolute slam dunk. VR gaming has resulted in a lot of great experiences over the years, but great games have been scarce though the platform has continued to evolve. Valve has upped the ante with its Valve Index as well as the release of HalfLife Alyx, a VR title set in the Half-Life universe that looks to transcend all VR titles before it. It is undeniable that Half-Life Alyx has set a new bar for VR titles, and it is also a bonus to get new Half-Life content. In our review, we claim that Half-Life Alyx is the best VR game yet, and maybe, just maybe, the best in the Half-Life franchise. Naughty Dog is back at it with The Last of Us Part 2, earning a rare 100 score from us here at COGconnected. As usual, Naughty Dog continues to improve its delivered products, bringing players a technical masterpiece with outstanding writing, performances, and combat. As one of the most anticipated sequels to one of the most beloved games, there is always bound to be some criticism, though the game shines through it. In our review, we stated, an astounding technical marvel, The Last of Us Part 2 deftly weaves diverse exploration and fun combat into the mix, resulting in a truly brilliant package.